I've heard people that sell $8 million getting suspended over this. Some of them aren't back yet, and it's been 3 weeks. So it is a big deal. Some of them have even submitted proper invoices. The thing is, how proper are those invoices? And that's one of the things that we can talk about a little bit later as well. A trust score is a metric. It's used at big corporations, and I know because I was part of a team that once designed trust scores for a logistics company, for a very large logistics company. And basically what they do is they measure the quality that they get from their specific supplier base. Amazon has trust scores for everything. They even have them for buyer accounts. If you have a low trust score as a buyer account because you're returning too much stuff and doing too many refund claims or just about abusing customer concessions, you get a low trust score. If it gets low enough, they'll kick you off their platform as well. Amazon has trust scores for everything. They have them for their own internal suppliers. They also have trust scores for our suppliers. And the way that works is every time there's an inauthentic claim by a customer, generally an invoice is submitted. This is all about massive data. So if enough claims come in about a specific ASIN and enough sellers submit invoices to show that their product is authentic with that invoice, that supplier actually loses trust score within the Amazon network. And at some point, that invoice will become useless. Their trust score will increase if they're an actual direct Amazon supplier. Like if they are in the Amazon network as a supplier to Amazon, that trust score will be a little bit higher. But if they're a relative unknown, if it's a new business, if they have a low score in their credit or, Dun & Bradstreet report, that will lower their trust score.
I'm assuming we can't find out the trust scores from Amazon.
You'll never find out what they are. You can kind of guess at what variables go into it. And I can tell you like what we used to use to determine trust scores for suppliers. And again, it's the age of the company, how long we've done business with them, what percentage of business they do with us relative to other business that they have. Like, if a company depends exclusively on Amazon, their trust score will be lower than if that company has businesses with many other ones because they just see it as a bigger risk, right? Everything is about risk management. If that company goes out of business and they're a critical supplier to Amazon, that's a risk, right? So they don't want that. They want you to have different ways or different customers as well. So Amazon uses external scrapers. They also investigate companies for political problems or influence that they may have, or just things that would be considered unsavory. So say some of their executives get into trouble somehow. Amazon has web scrapers and services that will detect risk in that side as well, and that will lower their trust score as well.
Right now, there's a big issue going on with sellers on Amazon. We use the word Section 3 because that's what a lot of them kind of been hit with. There's a lot of other things going on around that as well that I've heard outside of it. So first of all, let's just go back to what is Section 3? Why is it coming around? Why are we seeing so many complaints about it now? Amazon flexing its muscle on Section 3. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
So Amazon has historically purged bad sellers. There's been a series of rules that have been implemented that basically that just limits Amazon's ability to terminate someone's account. So the way around it for them is creating the section in their service or their terms of service. It's the business solutions agreement, as they call it. Section 3 is almost like a catch-all. If you do anything to upset or bring into disrepute Amazon's reputation as a platform, that's a Section 3 violation. So any kind of deceptive practice, altering invoices, selling counterfeits, distributing stolen product, all that kind of stuff falls under Section 3. But again, it's a catch-all. So if they just think you're doing something deceptive, they can just suspend you until you prove otherwise. I think they're using it to protect their business. At some point, there's been a lot of bad players on Amazon, but during COVID, everyone started selling on Amazon. Like a lot of people just flocked to the platform because they were at home and they didn't know what to do with their time and they needed money. So what ended up happening is a cottage industry of counterfeiters that would import counterfeit products from China, and those products have been there forever, like you could order them on AliExpress or whatever, started bringing them to North America in bulk. And they started setting up warehouses and they call themselves distributors. And they're distributing counterfeit products. And most people that don't know any better will fall for it and buy it. And they're buying $3 bottle of a well-known cosmetics brand that typically sells for $50 on Amazon. They're bringing it in from China for $3 and they're distributing it for 10 or 12, which gives you a 50 or 60% margin, which just sounds so juicy to any Amazon seller with a pulse, right? But that's the problem. It's a trap. It's not legitimate legitimate supply. It's counterfeit goods being passed off as legitimate goods. So what ended up happening is a lot of Amazon sellers, especially ones with not a lot of experience, thought they had found, this amazing way to make money, and it may have worked for them for a little bit. But then the negative customer reviews started coming in. This cream changed its formula. The cream burnt my face. This feels oily. This cream smells like kerosene. That kind of stuff. And again, Amazon is a data-driven company. They use data and algorithms to detect when something is wrong. They're pulling all this data, they're finding out all this information, and guess what? They have data scientists. If you understand a little bit about data science and how it works, Amazon is able to make connections between the types of items that certain groups of sellers are selling. They can do a cluster analysis, put them all into little subgroups, and find out which ones are likely to be counterfeiting. So these Section 3 violations, although they may seem random, they're far from random. They are backed by science. It is statistically significant data that is driving Amazon to ask for documents. And you know what happens when they ask for documents? You submit an invoice from XYZ distributor in California selling whatever product, some beauty product. You didn't only buy that one ASIN that they're asking for information on. You bought 15 other ASINs. So guess what? That information now goes into the cluster analysis and it finds more relationships of similarly typed sellers than you. So other sellers that also bought from that same place because all of those juicy margins were all in one place all at once, right? So Amazon clusters all that data together, and the closer you are to the centroid of that data, the more likely you are selling counterfeit products. They feed the information from the invoices that they're requesting from thousands of sellers into their data analysis and then find new relationships that lead to new waves of Section 3 violation notices. So they're just doing this over and over again, and they're closing the net on these guys. There's also the stolen goods products. Companies aren't stupid, especially for high-end products like Ninja blenders, Vitamixes, these vacuum cleaners that are $800. There is no way a wholesaler is going to sell them to you for $150. Give your head a shake. That is stolen goods. And all of these goods, they have tracking. Like everything has traceability. I've worked for enough big companies to know that everything we sold could be tracked to a lot code or a building number or as a very subtle marking in the equipment itself or the packaging. These companies know that they get these things stolen by the truckload, things fall off the back of the truck, pallets go missing, entire semi-trailers get stolen. I've heard of this happening. They just cut a hole in the fence, they get a power unit, and they drive right through the front gate, okay? Like complete mafia stuff. And these things get sold to little sub-distributors. They go ahead and sell it to Amazon sellers. And they do so by using Telegram groups, Instagram. Some of them even have a geographical warehouse, and they don't advertise. It's all word of mouth. That's why when you're seeing sellers suspended, sometimes they all know each other because they all went to the same warehouse location. And of course, Amazon tracks the zip code of these sellers or where they're registered. So they know that just goes into the cluster analysis that detects them and finds them within that space. And all of a sudden, all their buddies get suspended too. Bad products tend to hang out together as well as bad sellers. What's unfortunate with the Section 3 thing is that sometimes by coincidence, you may have legitimately bought a series of items that have clustered you within the group of dirty sellers. In some cases, statistical science isn't exact. There's always somewhere in the deviation you're going to fall short and you're going to get caught in one of the extremes. And when that happens, it's a complete devastating situation because you might have $500,000 worth of product tied up. You didn't do anything wrong, but you get suspended anyway. Yeah, you have to submit your documents and you need to prove the authenticity, and provided that your trust score with those suppliers is high and they haven't been marked as counterfeiters, you should be fine. But again, it's a numbers game. And unfortunately, when there's a lot of numbers, it takes time to get through. To get that manual review might take several escalations and might take several weeks for somebody to make a real decision on what's going to happen with your account. In a nutshell, that's what Section 3 is about. And that's how they're tracking and finding who's not behaving on Amazon. It's all cluster analysis.
Okay, so if you're struggling to find the profitable products, or maybe even the products you are buying are tanking, what do you need? You need to find those profitable suppliers which are working for Amazon sellers. This is why I've put together my top 100 supplier list for the USA and for the UK. And if you look in the description right now, you're going to see a link to that where you can access it for free. Have a look down below. What are some of the things that people can do to protect themselves, to be mindful, to minimize the chances it's happening? Obviously, looking at the supply chain, I'm guessing, is a big part of it. So tell me about that.
I mean, if you're going through a brand, call up the brand itself and find out who their authorized distributors are. That's one thing. The next thing is, if you find a deal, you got to ask yourself, why is it being sold world for so much lower than the official distributor is selling it for. How new is the company that's selling it? This is all something that you can Google and you can look up. I was talking to a guy the other day that got Section 3'd, and he's like, oh, I have all my invoices, everything's legit. And I saw the supplier's name, and like, this made national news, right? So I'm like, have you Googled that supplier? They Googled the supplier. They're like, oh, I guess I'm not getting my account back. I'm like, yeah, it's very likely. Distributors for high-end products aren't chasing Amazon sellers for business. There's usually a qualification process. If you're not being qualified to be a buyer to distribute a recognized brand, that's a red flag in itself. Like, you need to be cautious with that. Building relationships with wholesalers and suppliers is a long-term game. You need to be able to provide value, whether or not it's value through expertise in a specific subject matter like advertising, marketing, driving external traffic to Amazon websites. You got to add something of value. Otherwise, why would they pick you? Ask yourself that question. Most distributors and wholesalers, they already have an existing client base that's doing very well for them. And some of them will protect them, especially if they have retail locations. If you're just a brand new Amazon seller, what makes you special? That's why starting with a wholesale business is particularly challenging.
You talk about cluster analysis, and we saw it in the UK with a certain prep center. They had a lot of customers doing Amazon to Amazon flips. Basically, all the accounts got shut down because they were all buying to the same prep center. So this was all the buying accounts got shut down, and a lot of the selling accounts got shut down as well. We suspect it was a lot around look to Amazon like one person just had multiple accounts because it all came to the same address. I don't know if this affects A2A or what your thoughts are.
I don't think that's the case. I think what most likely happened is one of the prep center employees got ambitious and logged into the prep center's Wi-Fi with their seller account, and at some point got deactivated.
So they're saying on that address they've got an account and going from there.
Yeah, that's what I think. I've seen that situation happen before. That's why I always insist that the prep centers that I work with use a portal where they're not going into Amazon at all, not even through secondary permission. They're going in through a portal, which is like a prep software that, I create my prep order and they log into the prep software and then they push the order out to Amazon. They print the invoices for UPS or the shipping labels right on the prep portal. They never log into Amazon.
You've talked about Section 3s. We talked a bit about kind of other areas like gift cards, A2A. Where's this going? Like, people right now are like, I'm scared. I'm worried about my account. I don't think we should sell on Amazon anymore. And I've been through these, I've seen them over the years, all of a sudden big gatings, big suspensions, people losing their accounts. It happens. But what do you see in the future? And what advice do you give to people who are worried right now?
I've been around for quite a few years now, so I've seen this happen before. I think Amazon goes into cycles. Anything that they could do to have key performance indicators on the sellers that are selling or sending in good items and punishing the ones that don't. So they're just going to keep tightening everything that way. I think the coming years will be the years where Amazon tightens down on supply chain. And the very start of this has been this whole Section 3 purge, I call it. And I think ultimately, the same way that Amazon gates products, they're going to gate sellers. I think that they're not just going to allow anyone to sell on Amazon in the future. I think if you want to start selling on Amazon, the time for you to start is now. And at some point, it's going to be only established businesses that do X revenue can apply. Only established businesses with retail locations can apply. And I just don't think that they're going to take everyone anymore. Even the private label guys, they're going to start gating those guys too, because the world only needs so many garlic presses. There's just no need for it. That's why they increased the disposal fee, because Amazon said, oh, all these guys are sending in garlic presses that are never going to sell. How do we make more money off them? Well, let's charge them more when we destroy them. Ha ha ha. Right? Because the world only needs so much of that. So I think at some point, sellers are going to have to qualify to even be eligible to sell on the platform. That's my theory.
Now, if you're struggling to get ungated on Amazon, what can I recommend for you? Check out my 20-page ungating guide for Amazon sellers. This includes all of the top suppliers, distributions, and places to go to get unbraided for brands and categories within the USA and the UK. And it's got one supplier that works for everything, and I explain it step by step in that free guide you can get down below. I just want to say thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sharing. And obviously, hopefully I can kind of touch base with you in the coming months, maybe in a year, and see how the Amazon game has changed, what's going on with Section 3s, and also see how that's going forward, and also what advice you have for people sharing. But I just want to say thank you so much.
Yeah, no, thank you, Tom. This has been great.
Take care. Bye-bye.